Slash Dupe delayed episode.
Hello and welcome to a very special announcement for the movie pitching podcast with a twist, Slash Dupe.
I'll add this to the underneath of it.
Yeah, thanks. With me I have my co-hosts and regulars, Dan and Ryan.
Hello.
Hello.
Now, due to a variety of behind-the-scenes arguments and issues with creative control, we have had delays. Oh, and writer's strikes. What else? There's plenty of reasons why we have
probably
delayed.
Someone being a sexual deviant.
Probably the Britain, but not with us.
Not with us.
Else.
But
This is why we don't have a guest this week.
Yeah.
Is that?
Yes, exactly. We've cancelled our guest, both in the sort of classic sense and also in the modern sense. And for a variety of reasons, we thought that it would be fitting to bring to you at home an episode of Slash Dupe that has been delayed, the same as some of the films that you have loved or eagerly waited for on the run-up to the pandemic. So things like Black Widow, that was one of the films that was delayed. People were looking forward to that. That was the next big Marvel film. Everybody, of course, was eagerly awaiting Avatar 2. Do you remember that? And 3 and 4. Those were delayed because of the pandemic.
Weren't we awaiting Avatar 2 for the last decade?
Yeah, we have. I'm fairly sure he announced it before the release of Avatar 1. So those have been delayed for a variety of reasons. But Slash Dupe is coming to you delayed. We thought it would be fitting to have an episode that teased you in the run-up to our Adjudicator episode, which
also just an insight into this. This is the earliest we've ever recorded Slash Dupe. It is time check is 9:38. We're all only one cup of coffee in each.
Is it obvious? Is it obvious already? And I normally have a script.
Ryan is speaking for both Ryan and Sean, whereas I have been up since 6 o'clock with my little one. So this is like midday.
Yeah, but still only
I
one
was
cup
going to
of
say,
coffee.
for some people, 9:38 is quite late. For me, I wouldn't have even started.
Got my sourdough starter going, that kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. So we thought that we would do what all good delays do, and that's they rehash things behind the scenes, don't they, when a film's delayed, or mostly, let's say it's for creative differences. They rejigger things behind the scenes. They'll fire the director. They'll come in. They've got someone who can fit to the deadline. So someone's got to come in and they've got to hammer out the rest of the film to a certain deadline. So usually that's a sort of recycling of the previous work. Our May Day special was the last episode to go out. And in that, we had a new format, and we're interested in hearing if people enjoyed it or not. It might be something that we keep up. Let us know in the socials. It was a format where we quick-fired a bunch of existing titles, existing holidays, and tried to come up with our own Slash Dupes for them. This time, we're going to rehash that, because that's what a good delayed film does. Let's think of things like, also films that were forced to make their deadlines even when there were reasons to be delayed were like Quantum of Solace. Do you remember that? I've got some interesting stories about Quantum of Solace. Maybe we'll have them as Patreon rewards for when I met the writers Purvis and Wade. There are films like, so again affected by the writer's strike, you have Transformers: Revenge of the Fallen. That's the second Transformers, in case anyone's counting. And let's remember that is possibly one of the worst films ever made. So Quantum of Solace is redeemable, but I hesitate to find a thing that's redeemable about Transformers: Revenge of the Fallen. So, go on. Ryan looks like he wants to pitch something positive about Revenge of the Fallen. Then thought,
I was just gonna. Does that one contain Megan Fox in it?
Yes, it still had. At that point, it still had Megan Fox.
At that point, it was redeemable.
Okay, so maybe it was the third one, Dark of the Moon. Just as a side note, I would not have said this if it wasn't 9:38. We would have moved swiftly on. But I genuinely think that the last film in the franchise is the best. I'm not talking about Bumblebee either. I think The Last Night is the best of those 5. And I would argue that it's avant-garde cinema.
Is it especially with all the product placement?
Yeah, that's the best part. That's the best part. I love to be advertised to after I've already paid £25 for an IMAX ticket. Yeah, exactly. All right, well, you put me in my place. Maybe we'll do a Transformers special at some point.
And also to really hammer in the fact that we support all of our friends who have been in the arts industry, who unfortunately have had gigs that have been delayed because of COVID and everything like that. So to also support that, during one of the pitches at some point, we'll just stop because we've had to stop because of COVID, and we won't have to carry on.
You're saying we'll go on strike?
No, it would just be like.
Well, in honour of at least of the 3 projects that I've had over the last year that have been greenlit and then cancelled.
Yeah.
So, we can do that.
I thought you were going to
3 of mine
offer that we were going to give some money to charity or something. I thought that's what, and I was thinking, God, we don't make any money. How are we going to do that?
All the proceeds from Slash Dupe will go towards...
Yes, exactly.
Struggling artists.
For this week's
ourselves.
But no, Ryan is completely right, and we thought that we would do an episode that hopefully would bring some levity to the idea that delayed projects can actually affect real people, and they affect the pandemic has affected the arts.
And we often think of...
we understand in this country, don't we, with the government and everything, and they're sort of trailblazing at arts cutting. There is and cinemas closing. There's a real...
And we often think that it's only the actors that are affected, but there's hundreds of people behind the scenes that have also been affected by this. By even things that are delayed for 6 months can absolutely wreak havoc on people's schedules.
Yeah. And we are obviously going to be supporting them by talking shit into a microphone at 9:30 on a Saturday morning. So
of course,
let's change the world, folks.
Because if we make at least 3 people laugh, then we break even, and make 1 more laugh, then we're in profit.
Do laughs put food on the table? I don't know.
I mean, they do. There's literally comedians. Yeah, comedians get laughs and put food on the table.
No. So we're going to rehash our previous episode in classic delayed and affected style, but with a twist. So the new director's come on board and he said, right, I don't want you pitching 6 ideas each or whatever nonsense you did last time. Let's take that format, let's take those ideas, and let's just have 3 really strong ideas per person. So that's what we're going to nail down. We're going to have, each person is going to pitch 3 titles of delayed films due to COVID. I also want to just point out that I think that it's fairly appropriate to a delayed product, a delayed film, that this is probably of a much worse quality than it normally is. Oh, and we've got a new creative voice about to enter the. Dan's kid is about to. He's very excited and. He wants to join in the creative. I wish you could see this. He's yelling at Dan. There he is, a producer. He's storming around. He wants things changed up.
You can
now he's trying to appeal to.
This will get cut
doesn't want Dan to leave.
Hang on.
Project.
Hang on. Go on. Go.
Luigi's Mansion 3.
He wants it to be Luigi's Mansion 3.
There's a person called Egad, and he built this thing called the poltergust goo. And there's a poltergust in there. It goes, you put it in the car so the ghost didn't see it in Luigi's Mansion 3. So they had loads of ghosts. Luigi can go through stuff with broken holes in. And so Luigi can do a lot of things that Luigi can't.
Right.
Luigi's in Mario Odyssey, and he's also the main character in Luigi's Mansion. And there's a big fighter ghost called King Boo, and he's the hardest one to fight.
That's it. And as quick as he comes, he's a whirlwind. He's given us new ideas, given us his producer's notes, and then he's off.
And then he's gone.
Mostly the ideas that we have to pitch today revolve around a retelling of the story for Luigi's Mansion 3.
Oh, he's got.
Paper.
Oh yes, you need some paper. Yes. Demands for materials.
Demands for materials.
Time and materials.
He does. He knows the budget's short and the time's tight.
But he doesn't care.
He doesn't care.
He doesn't care.
He doesn't care. New head of the
wants what he
studio.
wants.
So
We could all do with a 4-year-old in charge. They get stuff done. They get stuff done.
that's true. That's true. And most studio heads probably have the same temperament and patience and outlook as a 3-year-old anyway. So that's fitting. So next time we'll promise this producer a film down the line in the franchise that is a retelling of Luigi's Mansion 3. I guess it's in the zeitgeist, isn't it? It's in vogue. It's like that's what they want. They go, oh, Deadpool did really well. Let's change Justice League to be funny and light-hearted, and because we don't want anything dark anymore because Deadpool did really well. So we have that to come with the time when we pitch everyone at home 9 ideas based on Luigi's Mansion 3. That's an upcoming episode. But yes, as promised, for now, we will take some of the most interesting, unique and exciting titles from the last year and a half that have been delayed due to the pandemic. This is what happens when films are delayed. They usually end up terrible. And the people involved are exhausted and
this couldn't be a better example. Couldn't be a better example.
So I'm going to start by pitching the Slash Dupe title Free Guy. Now, just a slight bit of background for my first of 3, Free Guy. It's got Ryan Reynolds in it. What film doesn't these days? Which good for him. Free Guy is essentially, and why I'm interested in it as a film, is that it's one of the first feature films, I think, to really tackle the idea of being an NPC, right? Which is a non-playable character or a non-player character for anyone that doesn't play video games or other sorts of gaming. So a few films have done this before. The Nines is an interesting experiment by John August, which actually had him in it, had Ryan Reynolds in it. But Free Guy is taking the idea of either an MMO, a massive multiplayer online game, similar to World of Warcraft, you might have heard of something similar to that, or Grand Theft Auto Online. And it's taking the idea of a character that just goes about his regular routine, but in this film he's broken out of that cycle and sort of gains, I guess, a sentience or an autonomy and recognises that he's in a video game. So since Ready Player One and other sorts of things to capture the idea of video games and online play in a big way, Free Guy seems to be sort of a fun little romp from a very specific video game sort of angle. But we are not going to pitch that to you. We're going to take the title Free Guy and we're going to do something completely different with it.
Free Guy. My logline is not me, right? This is the logline.
Mm-hmm.
I shall be the first free slave.
Oh,
that's good. That's more of a tagline. A logline would normally denote sort of like the broad strokes of the thing in a sentence or two. Normally it's got the primary, you know this, obviously, primary character, sort of their goal or motivation, and then sort of a brief idea of the plot or a teaser.
Even with my half a logline, it's elicited so much response from you already that, I like it's
it. I like it. Mine would be a comedy where a man puts himself on eBay for sale for free. Like they do these auctions where you can auction for charity to get someone to be a cook for the day or something like that.
Yeah.
He does that every day, but for free on eBay or something.
Which, now that I think about it, is has some quite awful roots, isn't it? By my idea and your idea sort of share a similar root, don't they? Which is
what the idea of slavery.
And it's for charity, isn't it? Parade somebody up on stage and then get people in a room to bid on them to do their things for them for a day. But not to shit on your idea.
Now that you've expanded it like that feels horrible, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
Mine would have to be a Will Ferrell comedy about, I'm just sort of using that as a broad term, because everybody knows what that means when you say that. a Will Ferrell comedy, but directed by Judd Apatow, so it's 4 hours long and very serious as well.
Of course.
Where Will Ferrell like sort of turns his comedy image back around and does like a serious work.
Like in Stranger Than Fiction.
Yeah,
Which I think is one of his finest works.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it was one of his little lesser seen films, definitely. Where it's sort of like a Julian Assange type story, or it's about a whistleblower living in an unusual place, and they want to free him. He's like a political prisoner, and his name's Guy, obviously, and it's like free Guy. And but the place he's a political prisoner is the source of comedy. Do you know what I mean? Like I haven't really figured that out, but it has to be somewhere ludicrous. It can't be an embassy, it can't be an airport.
It's like the term. Yeah, it's not the terminal, but
yeah, exactly. What did you say, Dan?
Antarctica.
So
that's where he's
okay.
Yeah,
yes.
because there's no one has actually any claim to it, do they?
So he's like he's just there,
and he can't leave because there's like encampments set up to arrest him if he leaves. Yeah, perfect. I love it.
Well, he can't leave because he'll die of exposure if he gets out into the cold.
And does he befriend? Is it a little bit like Castaway as well? Does he sort of befriend a penguin and that's his best mate?
Surely that's got to happen. Yeah.
And the penguin is almost like sentient.
And then at one point the penguin sits on him for warmth, isn't it?
Yeah, that's quite sweet, actually, isn't it? That's one of the sweet bits of the film.
I think Dan's idea's got legs to take the producing point from this, and it would be, I sort of see it, like the way, the style of comedy that Yes Man was by that had Jim Carrey in it.
Yeah,
I sort of see it like that sort of thing.
Yeah, that
just
works.
someone that.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, because like that, it seems like a Danny Wallace type of shenanigan that he would do.
Yeah,
that book was brilliant. I read it when I was a younger man, and I actually decided to live by its tenets for a bit. Tried to be a yes man.
If I remember correctly, it's like you just say yes to
everything.
every offer. Yeah,
yeah.
How did that work?
It worked. I mean, it worked out. I was a younger man, so it was a little easier to do. It was quite fun for a short period of time, and then it moved on to the good karma thing where you try and do. He create the karma club or something where you do something good, want something nice, a random act of kindness every day. And I think I ended up reading both books and just trying to combine both of them at the same time, which led to some fun shenanigans. Yeah. I don't know if you've read the Yes Man book, but it's beautifully written. Like I think Danny Wallace and James Acaster have that same kind of feeling where they're doing good things. They make comedy gold out of seemingly sort of average encounters, but with a heart and like with personality. So I'm reading. I think I mentioned this in another one. I'm reading Perfect Sound, whatever.
Yeah, I can highly recommend that. Yeah,
and it's as much tragedy as it is comedy.
That's what I was gonna say. I reckon it could be the guy is like his kids have all gone off to college or if or university or whatever, and so he wants to help people. Like he loved looking after his kids, but now they've got their independence, and so he just and his house is already perfectly clean. And
he's got all this time and love to give, and he wants to give it out. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's really interesting because I watched a bit of Samurai Gourmet, and sort of expected it to be terrible, but actually it's like a positive spin on a retired salaryman in Japan. So like it's quite tragic what can happen to certain salarymen after their sort of purpose as it were ends, but this guy finds a new lease of life and finds a sort of new type of freedom, and it's really positive and lovely. So I like this. It's almost like a post-retire. It's like a film that says it's okay to find a new purpose. So I like that. It's quite profound. Let's just hope the producer doesn't come back in and ask us to put Guiji in it.
Guiji in it. He needs to have a goo version of himself.
Nice. That's Free Guy.
Yeah, that's that one. That's Free Guy smashed.
Great.
Smashed.
I love that. Right. So the second of the three of my Slash Dupe pitches is the film Last Night in Soho, which some of you will already immediately recognise as the new Edgar Wright film. So Edgar Wright he's a huge fan of horror, hence sort of Shaun of the Dead, but that still was sort of horror smashed up against Spaced, which is what they all came off the back of the TV series. He did. Do you remember he did a sort of schlocky B movie trailer in between Grindhouse, the Quentin Tarantino, Robert Rodriguez set of films. So they have 3 or 4 trailers in between. One was Rob Zombie, I think. Can't remember the other one, and then there was Edgar Wright. So I feel like he's sort of picking that up. He's picking up his love of sort of British cinema. And I'm feeling like he's probably got the influence of something like Don't Look Now. So I feel like he's bringing a bit of a Nicholas Roeg vibe in, who was a really unique sort of filmmaker who had a really sort of existential and unusual sort of approach to his filmmaking. So I feel like Last Night in Soho is probably going to be a sort of black comedy with a bit of a Dario Argento vibe as well. I don't think there's any trailers been released at all. I think it's just some posters, and I think it's one of these projects that's going to be shrouded with secrecy, and with any luck, it's going to sort of take cinema by storm when it comes out. I feel like it's going to be one of those. But we're not going to pitch that idea. We're going to pitch a new idea. So, who has Slash Dupe for the title Last Night in Soho?
Okay, I've got an odd one. So it would be, it would be like on the cusp of, obviously with the celebration of It's a Sin and sort of TV shows like that, be a celebration of Soho. And Sean, I remember you having people at your workplace, like older people at your workplace, thinking because you worked in Soho you were gay.
Well, they also thought that, they sort of, because I said I worked in film in Soho, which I never thought at the time had any other connotation to it. Because I knew a lot of post-production houses like are in Soho. That's basically what
it would be like gay rights are just about to come in, and they know that all the hetero white women are going to start to appropriate gay culture. So like they arrange, sort of similar to the boys in the band, the guys, like a group of gay guys, try to have the most gayest night in Soho before all the hetero women come in and ruin it. Last Night in Soho.
I do. I kind of like that. The idea of like a gay club. I can't remember what I was watching recently, but they brought this up. The idea between a gay bar and a gay bar. You know, there's like do you know what I mean? Like I can't remember. I honestly can't remember the reference. But there's a sort of cosmopolitan, metropolitan sort of gay bar, isn't there, in Soho now? And then there would have been places where, when it was vilified, or at least, put upon in a much more serious way, there were clubs where you could go and be gay and feel comfortable. So it is interesting to delve into this sort of gentrification almost of these. Yeah,
that's the word I was going to use, and it's like that. It's not. And there are people who are in support of it. There's other people who are like, no, like, we're about to be gentrified, and other people are like, well, what does it matter?
Isn't it good to be included or inclusive? And then isn't it good to have a bastion that, where you can feel
a bastion everybody supports?
Yeah,
but they just don't want the white women in there, so they just have their last night in Soho.
I like that. I would have probably gone for. Just at the nexus where Soho was turning from a red light district into a commercial district. So you sort of have the last, maybe a sex worker who's trying to change profession. So because they would have been edged out of the sort of the space of Soho, perhaps even the job of a sex worker, particularly if you didn't want to move anywhere or anything. I don't really know the sort of laws around it, but so ultimately this person would have had to have been sort of sex working to sort of ending, like, you've handed in your sort of notice almost. You have your 4 weeks, and then you're trying to transition from that job to something else, and then perhaps it's involving the commerce and that sort of and tourism that's come into Soho. So I don't know if there's something there. I need to read a few books.
The trailer is definitely like, well, looking at your resume here, excellent people skills, and it comes to like something else.
Yeah. And it's her like in a booth or whatever, like sort of, making a young lad feel
like
comfortable
hours attended
because his mates have made him go in there, but he's uncomfortable, so she's made him feel comfortable. That's a part of the job, right?
Oh, it says here you work nights.
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
I'm going to go for something more political and current, in that it's going to be an extrapolation of COVID and government cuts having wiped out the theatre industry, and none of the theatres in Soho are able to continue anymore. So it's a documentary filming the last shows of all the and the casts and the companies of all of the theatres in Soho, and like their last hours and last days.
Good.
In Soho.
It's very dystopian. It's definitely the thing that it's been a while since Slash Dupe has pitched like a speculative look forward into a possible future.
I just watched. Well, I recently finished Last Chance U basketball, and man, I cried at the end because I felt so awful for the guys in it, because it sort of takes place at the end of 2019 into 2020, and it's just tragic, and it's just like so I can see the similar response that would happen within the theatrical industry, and the uncertainty of it all.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for that. That was Last Night in Soho. Okay, so for the last of my 3 ideas, my Slash Dupes for delayed films, I will go for Resident Evil. Now,
Boo.
Yes, I know what you're thinking. So this is good because it coincides with the release, and I'm sure the studios know this as well, coincides with the release of Resident Evil Village, aka Resident Evil 8, which is the video game that has just recently come out, if you're listening to this around the same sort of time.
Which might I add is the Slash Dupe level of redonkulous for a title, right? Because when I first saw it, it was just called Village, and some idiot has gone, oh my god, guys, here's what we'll do. We'll call it Village, and then we'll drop the idge out of it, because the VILL looks like an 8, mic drop, gives bills, and fucked off out the room.
You're right, like, it is Slash Dupe levels of ridiculous, isn't it?
It is Slash Dupe levels of ridiculous, because then it then flashed Resident Evil.
Games aren't they? Like, if you think about like the way that Metal Gear Solid Ground Zeroes and Metal Gear Solid Guns of the Patriots and all that, they're all like Slash Dupe titles, all the sort of translated Japanese, which is definitely an idea for an episode down the line. You're right, it's ludicrous. And about as ludicrous as some of the antics in the live-action Resident Evil films adapted by the visionary, by which I mean, but perhaps someone, by that term I mean someone who's maybe they've just got their vision for the first time, and then they don't know what to do with it. They just have sight for the first time,
like
and they just
mole.
decided to, popping up to see the sun, and has just thrown as much ugly nonsense at the screen as possible. So even the good Resident Evil films are worse than every other film I've ever seen. So I will stand by. Listen, if it wasn't so early, I might have been kinder on them. But they're horrific. I saw the first Resident Evil on a long play VHS. So someone got a pirate version. This was back when films didn't really come out at the same time in all territories, which they often do here in Western territories. So it was quite a big deal to have the Resident Evil film on a VHS, and then at the end of it there was the one starring Jet Li. That was, for a while, that was my favourite VHS, and I will not. Someone lent it to me, and I had to give it back as well. That's how it worked. And I won't deny that at the time I felt something to see one of my favourite video game franchises. I came in on the second Resident Evil and then worked my way backwards. So that's quite old school. And I've loved this franchise, and it got me into video games, and there's a lot to it. So when those films came out, I wanted to love them. You know when you know that you hate something, but you kid yourself. And that happened a lot when I was younger, especially when it came to bad films. And Resident Evil, I wanted to love, and I knew every second I watched it that I hated everything about it.
Okay, I've got Resident Evil is the subtitle to the new Dennis the Menace film.
Yes.
Right? Dennis the Menace,
yes.
Subtitle Resident Evil. And his family move into like a cul-de-sac somewhere, and he just starts tearing. You know, he's like, great, this is a whole new playground, a whole new group of people to mess around with and screw with. But actually, the heart and soul of it is that he's lashing out like this because he misses all of his old friends and he's in a new area and he doesn't understand it and he's scared.
Yeah.
So he becomes the resident evil.
Can I also say that? Oh, sorry, Dan, go on.
No, you go first.
I was just going to say that I think it should open with this microcosm of his old friends and his old playground, where he's being a menace, and they all have their own, as children do. You don't often see it, but they have their own power structures and dynamics, and the way they're all raised, it brings them to a different way of play. And when he moves away from his friends, who you sort of see it as a bit dark and a bit weird at first, when he moves to the cul-de-sac, you see the same dynamics in the adults in that cul-de-sac and how they are as neighbours and adults. They have the same sort of childish human impulses and attitudes. So by the end of it, he understands how to manipulate them all because they're just children, essentially. And as you said quite rightly, this is just his new playground.
I mean, we're not going to top that, really, are we? My idea for that would be a post-career, like another documentary on Evel Knievel once he's finished and retired and he's settled down. So he's a resident evil. Nice. And just watching what he has to do to make ends meet, like making mini plastic motorbikes and painting them and selling them on or something.
What's the Korean angle?
No, Korea, not Korean. I thought you said Korea as well.
Are we going to keep that in?
I mean,
I thought he'd settled. I thought first you were doing a North and South Korea thing, and then I thought you were adding Evel Knievel to it. So I thought, oh wow, he's retired to Korea. That's a bold move.
I mean, that's added a twist, doesn't it? But not what I said.
I now 100% understand what you were saying. Yeah, that's fascinating. Both great ideas. I don't have anything to add because I don't think I could possibly take away from Dennis the Menace, Resident Evil. That's fantastic.
Amazing.
And the Resident Evil film has a subtitle, Welcome to Raccoon City, which is a stupid subtitle. It's way too long and it's meaningless. But I am very excited to see if someone who actually cares about the games and wants to make a horror and it's got an interesting sort of young cast, a lot of British actors. I think it's genuinely worth checking out. I mean, I've been disappointed in the past, like with every single other video game adaptation that has ever come out. But, maybe this one's going to be different.
Okay, so I've got a whole bunch of action movies as mine. Loads of action movies delayed. First one, I've gone for F9. For those unfamiliar, that will be Fast and the Furious 9. Mm-hmm. I'm pretty sure it has another subtitle as well, but I have no idea.
Well, they did do a thing, didn't they, where they wanted to do sort of Furious Fast 6 and Furious 7, or don't quote me on that. It might be like Fast 8 or something like that. So they wanted to do that, right. And I think in certain territories they did. So they had Fast 7 and Furious 9 or something. Do you know what I mean? Something like that.
Okay.
I'm proud to not be an expert, although I have seen every single one of them. And came in at the first one again, the same sort of time as Resident Evil, but
a great film,
a banger of in terms of like
first one,
yeah,
all the FBI
emblematic
stuff
of its
like
time,
that.
Yeah, definitely a product of its time before the franchise sort of
got
almost.
I think the technical term is redonkadink.
Yes, that's the term.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean the thing is, like, it became a superhero movie, didn't it? And once you start thinking of them like that, then they're actually
fair enough. Yeah.
Yeah, Hobbs and Shaw just feels like a sort of MCU sort of light spin-off, doesn't it? It feels a little bit like almost like a Guardians of the Galaxy type film, if you think about it. It has that exact sort of tone and script, and so they know what they're doing, really, don't they? But initially, yes, it was based on an article about the street racing gangs in some kind of part of the world, and became The Fast and the Furious.
The Fast and the Furious. Love it.
So F9, we're not going to pitch that though, are we, Dan? We're not going to pitch Fast and Furious.
No, we're not going to pitch that.
What have we got for F9?
My idea is going to be a hacker story, and not the Maori thing. It's going to be a new virus that takes over the internet, and when any time anyone presses F9, it causes all. It's like a bit like The Ring.
Yeah, I love
so
it.
if you press F9,
Yeah.
bad shit
Hacker
happens to
movie
you.
and a horror movie in one. I kind of like
And a horror
that.
movie all at once.
Because when
Yeah.
they do those horror movies like Unfriended or what's the one with John Cho in it? I can't remember. But when they make these sort of
That was The Grudge.
no,
remake.
he did one called I don't know. It's like a Facebooky type horror film, or maybe that was Unfriended. He did another one where he's looking for his daughter online. But anyway, they do these sort of techie online sort of horror films, and they sort of play on social media and stuff. But they don't actually deal with quite sort of pernicious idea of viruses.
That's called searching.
Searching, right?
Maybe you get a virus by pressing F9 or something.
Yeah.
Gives you it doesn't have to make sense.
No,
does
it doesn't. In fact, the less it makes sense,
It's a
the
horror
better
movie.
as well. Yeah.
Yeah,
We'll get Becky
exactly.
Pantling from this Train Terminates episode to whip up a script. For
So
us.
I was thinking. So I recently discovered a metal band called Spirit Box, and they have a song called "The Rule of Nine." And the rule of 9 is how you assess a burns on a burn victim. And also, remember you telling me, Sean, like nil by mouth is a term. So maybe like for mine, F9 could be something like something. I was thinking
It's a
something
medical
like
term,
that.
like they put it on your
Yeah, like
charts
it's a
to denote
particular-
something. Yeah.
Yeah, and I sort of, you know, if you reach like F9, or so, you know, I'm also now just thinking it could be about a cool ass jet, couldn't it?
Well, my pitch is just going to be like some kind of Formula One sort of, or Formula
But
E,
9.
but 9. So
9.
maybe it's in the future or something, or maybe it's in the past, and it's one of the preliminary sort of. Maybe it's
No,
how Formula One
because it
came
goes-
about,
no,
or
but
how
bear in
those
mind,
sort of formula. Sort
It
of whatever.
goes up to 1.
Yes,
So like,
perfect.
so F9 is like pedal carts.
Pedal bikes.
Oh no, it's not going to be another Will Ferrell comedy, is it?
It's like a whole bunch of kids taking it like way too serious. Like you see
the
like
sequel to Hot
in
Rod.
like in someone's garage, and you've got like
Yeah.
the kid who's like the
It's
the
the Lonely
mechanic, the head
Island
mechanic.
sequel to Hot Rod. F9
Yeah,
Hot Rod 2.
prequel
you know.
prequel to Hot Rod.
Yes, yeah, prequel,
And then
yeah.
it's-
And they're playing themselves, but as kids.
Yeah.
Like, with, like, makeup to make them look younger and, like, doing young acting. So it's basically like a whole SNL
It would be
sketch.
like every time that you have like probably 9 kids, right? And you have like 9 kids, and they're all, when they're like in the shop working, they're all adults. But when you see them from another adult's perspective, it's the child actor.
Yes, that's great.
Love it.
That's a good
Love
way
it.
of handling it. Well, good, that was F9.
Well, they're brilliant. Yeah, that's F9. We've smashed that one, and the next one, which is hilarious, that we're doing a delayed one because we've delayed our special on this over and over and over again. It's No Time to Die. I think we must have scheduled in the episode for this about 5 times now. It's going to be amazing when we get to it.
Yeah.
Is it, or is it going to just the
or is it gonna
expectations
be-
are built
yeah.
so high? Yeah.
No Time to Die, of course, is the 25th instalment in the James Bond film series, when it arrives finally. And it is it going to be Daniel Craig's last one? I mean,
Yes.
he always says that this
Yeah.
one's the last one.
This time
But
he
it
really
is
means
officially
it. though.
his last one. This one he really means it until the next one.
Yeah.
This
Well, they
time
haven't
it's
announced
personal.
a new Bond, so I'm fascinated because I am all, and we will probably go into some of this in the Bond episode we do. But I'm fascinated by sort of the business decisions that go behind Bond, right? Because there's a lot of business decisions. Obviously, the franchise has often, as well, for a variety of reasons, sort of gone on into bankruptcy a few times, you know, or the franchise has lapsed because the company, has gone into bankruptcy. So it's basically one of the big franchises keeping MGM afloat, if I remember correctly. So I'm fascinated by the sort of monetary decisions that go in. It's very political, isn't it? You know, the decisions of who plays Bond and when and why, and there's a lot now attached to it politically as well, with the idea of it possibly being a woman or a person of colour. So I'm fascinated by that. So the fact they haven't announced
But we won't
it,
be touching that today
No.
because that's not
We
what we're
won't,
talking
will we?
about. No Time to Die. I mean, that's honestly how I feel right now. So maybe it's a movie about a dad who's just trying to get through life. Let's let him have 6 kids.
Yes.
And he's like, maybe he's in a, maybe he's got in a, he has the opening is that the family get into not a very bad car crash. The kids are all fine, but maybe like he's broken a couple of ribs, and he's just got to get on with his day, and it gets more and more ridiculous. Like he ends up getting more and more injured. Probably Jason Statham, right, playing the dad, and he just gets into more like completely innocuous things though, like maybe he trips over in Morrison's or something.
Just
like
normal things that could. A friend of ours was putting the bins
it's
out and broke her ankle. Like just putting the bins out. No, there's nothing, not uneven ground, no bad weather. Broke her ankle.
So it's like Kindergarten Cop, I think, but with Jason Statham, and he's just a dad. I say just a dad, getting on with his life, constantly getting more and more injured, and at the end, maybe he's got to save his kids from something that he doesn't realise, and he's got no time to die.
So can we have a B plot? I'm feeling like Mr. and Mrs. Smith vibes. I'm feeling like there was another film that like that has this sort of vibe. Nobody came out recently by the guy who directed Hardcore Henry. I like this idea that there's a B plot going through the entire film where there's some sort of, I don't know, sort of MI5 or there's some sort of James Bond subplot where there's this, a little bit like... oh man, that film with Gina Davis in it is such a great... Last Kiss Goodnight. Is that what it's called? Long Kiss Goodnight?
Long Kiss Goodnight.
Such a great film. So you've got... But the B plot is threatening at every turn in this sort of shaky cam, sort of born way to interrupt into his life. But it never does. Yeah. So all of the shit that happens to him is all just his own family and all the being a dad.
Yeah, boring stuff. Yeah,
and it's not even adjacent. It's not even like it crosses over and affects him. It's just threatening to at every turn.
The road down the road is where the gunfight's going on, but he can't hear it because his kids are screaming in the house.
Exactly.
And that's when someone hits him with a pillow and he gets a sprained neck.
Yes, exactly. And you're expecting Jason Statham
which
to
actually happened to me.
Did it?
You got in a pillow fight and sprained your neck.
Yeah. Brilliant. I think I was beating up Sean.
I sprained my neck recently doing a sort of Asian sort of head dance.
For Barb's enjoyment.
Yeah, so my aunt was laughed so much at it because she'd never seen me do it before. I just was moving my head in a sort of traditionally, I guess, sort of Asian style. I'm happy to hear if I'm being intolerant in the comments. But she loved it so much that I did it for about 20 minutes straight, and by the next day I'd sprained my neck.
You've always got to warm up before you do your neck moves.
It's true.
Always warm up.
I didn't realise. I thought I was immune,
Rookie mistake.
I used to be so young and I could do the head movement.
Age comes for us all.
So
no time to die.
No time to die.
So my No Time to Die, it's sort of in a similar vein, but I listened to a podcast where there was a woman who basically didn't have the fear like center in her brain. I can't remember where it is. Sort of similar to the climber Alex, whatever his name is. Like they just don't process fear in the same way that the rest of us do. So she got away. So someone tried to mug her and was like, "Give me your money or I'll stab you." And her initial response was like, "Well, no, because I'm just going to stab you first." And like this guy she just had no fear. She had no fear of any of these things. So it would be this like a short film about this woman like trying like having this thing and like having a whole conversation with the mugger and then just walking away, and the mugger's like following her. And he's like, "No, I'm just not going to give you any money." And she's just going on with her day, and this mugger is still just following her the entire time. And so she just has, I just don't have any time for it. Just don't have any time for it.
Oh, I like that.
Not scared of
That's
it.
good. I didn't have an idea for No Time to Die, and I'm on board with both of those. But then I just thought it's a Pixar film about someone's mother. What?
I was just thinking a Pixar film about death, a really lazy death. Like death is passing over to his younger son, and he's like, "Nah, I can't be bothered."
That's very Terry Pratchett.
And no one dies.
I love that.
Yeah, no one dies.
Yeah.
We do have that.
Oh man, maybe I shouldn't pitch mine then. Mine is about a mother that's dying and the child that doesn't want to go to her deathbed because they're afraid, like maybe a teenager. And when they step into the room, the mum has died, and they're the first person to find out. But the souls of both of them go into the watch that she's been waiting to give to the child, and then they then they're in some sort of weird world where they have their final conversations that they never had inside while they're trying to escape from this clockwork world. And then, like, you just...
That's actually that's totally Pixar,
like
isn't
that.
it? It's great.
And they have share a final moment in spirit, I suppose, something like that. That's dark.
Like it. Well, to contrast with that in its entirety, I couldn't leave our idea of jumping over the moon on a motorbike, Tom Cruise.
Oh, man.
So I went for MI8, Mission Impossible 8. And I don't know whether we just come up with the plot for a new Mission Impossible, because really, we were on fire.
I think this came out of the joke of like the new Fast and the Furious going to space, and it was like all of these like the next thing in these is like Earth has been conquered. What is next for people? It is space. I think that's where we were joking about.
That's where we went with. And Tom Cruise not happy that the Fonz jumped the shark. He's actually going to jump the moon
for real in real life. Tom Cruise, the actor, wants to jump a motorcycle from the moon to Earth as a sort of his final big stunt of his career.
Stunt.
So maybe this is it. So this is his final
his
stunt
life,
of his career,
probably,
and potentially.
Well,
his
he'll
life,
just and
but he'll go to Xandu or whatever, whatever prophet he believes in. He'll end up, and he burns up on re-entry. He'll end up going to Scientological
He thinks, oh well, if Felix Baumgartner went from just the tip, I can get in. I can go an extra couple of meters above him and just
that's what he's thinking. And the best bit is he's put in the waiver, because obviously he does his own stunts. He loves all that stuff. So he's in on it. And he's put in that if it goes badly, they just have to CGI him finishing the stunt. So like his body is literally the same shot. They take the shot. He jumps on the moon. He jumps all the way to Earth. It doesn't go so well for him. But the bike survives. So they CGI him. And you can see it in the CGI. It's one of those Easter eggs that people talk about for ages. The moment where it stops being Tom Cruise and becomes CGI.
It's like he perishes.
It will burn. It will like burn up in re-entry, and then they'll be like, Ethan, and he'll be a fireball. And that's actually when Tom Cruise dies. It's that moment.
Yes.
I'm still here.
Mission Impossible 8, and it would be called something like, I'm not saying with Fireball, but it would be called something like that, wouldn't it? Wouldn't be called Re-entry.
Inferno.
In honor of his sort of
something
immolation. Like Mission Impossible 8, immolation.
And there are memes for when he comes down, tasteless memes, I must add, using the scream that he did. Do you remember from the trailer for The Mummy, where they accidentally forgot to put in any of the audio and kept his original raw scream audio that he used as temp track? So you can Google that if you like. It's just the most hilarious and perfect scream ever. And it's almost a shame, because it's the sort of stuff that you're not supposed to hear. It's just a temp track. Yeah. But they've put that on anyway on his re-entry. Maybe it's called re-entry, and it's like, maybe he hasn't been in the franchise for one film, and then he's like, no. Like he did with one of them. He was almost going to pass the torch. But he's like, no, I'm coming back for this one. And it's Mission Impossible re-entry. But the thing is, why? So first of all, I love the idea of a space heist. There's not enough space heists, not enough heists have conducted, in and around.
There's not much out in space to heist.
Well, the ISS maybe. There's some, they've got to.
So they've heard. Doesn't Jupiter rain diamonds?
Yeah, I was just about to say that. Yeah.
So now they've gone to Jupiter to go and steal all the diamonds.
And then it's Nolan directing, obviously, because he wasn't ever going to do a Bond film, because he put all of his good ideas into all of his Bond ideas into all of his other films. So for this one, he's doing the Mission Impossible. He's jumped over to the other franchise. So you have a huge practical stunt, because that's his whole thing. So you have all of this stuff for real. You have them shoot on the ISS with IMAX cameras. You have, all of this sort of physical stuff, and you have a space heist with culminates.
And they sort of, and then the bad guys like leave him on the moon, don't they? We're going to leave you on the moon as the dark side approaches. And he's got to race the dark side of the moon, and then he sees the ship fly off, and they're like, Ethan, you can't do it. And he sees a crater.
Running away from the light.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the running. Listen, this is perfect, because that's the running scene. There's always a running scene in every good Tom Cruise film and every Mission Impossible film.
So it's
so it looks even more epic. And then he jumps onto the moon rover motorcycle that's been created by NASA themselves in real life, so that you can get the 20-minute teaser extra about how they built this motorcycle just for Tom Cruise, with the big wheels and everything. So he rides that, and then somehow there's some sort of ramp that takes him.
Leaves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he'd have to get the
It's from a
trajectory just
crater,
right,
isn't it?
Yeah, from a
Yeah,
crater.
he works out, yeah.
And he sees the Earth,
Got it.
and down there is his wife, remember, from like the third film, and she calls to him, and somehow he hears it.
He's got an implant, one of the, like
Ghost
like
Protocol,
a
they had
retinal
a little
implant.
retinal implant, didn't
Yeah, but this retinal implant is like a terabyte, like 15 billion terabyte MP camera, so he can actually see her from the moon. He like he zooms in and in and in and in. And
Yeah,
in and sees
yeah.
her.
And it's got all of the data from all the other satellites as well, right? And and it gets his trajectory back to Earth, so he knows it's spot on.
Yeah.
And and then that's how he's going to get back to his wife.
Wouldn't it be more epic if he just
Do you know what?
guessed?
Do you know what?
Yeah,
I'm
'cause
actually
he told us
gonna.
it falters
what I'm
halfway
doing.
through, and he just figures it out.
I'm
himself.
gonna maybe. I feel like then Tom Cruise would go, hold on a minute, I won't make it in re-entry. So he's like uses his and he's like, all right, which one of the satellites is being taken out of orbit? And then they hack onto it. And it's definitely one of Elon Musk's one because he'll probably
product placement.
he'll fund it when he
Absolutely.
and then he has to time his trajectory perfectly with landing onto the satellite and getting
and then
in
riding the satellite on the bike,
Like
on
down.
the satellite,
yeah,
riding
so the
it down
heat
to
shields.
Earth.
So the heat shields will protect his re-entry
That's good.
Yeah.
That
while he's on the
works.
bike, and then as soon as it lands, and then he'll just ride off
The
it.
bike comes off. Yeah.
Yeah, and he's off, and he skids
And he's off,
directly
And he
in front
grabs
of
his
her.
wife, and he grabs his wife as he does
I was
it.
going to say perfectly. He'll ride perfectly into like where the ion bomb is about to go off and defuse it.
Some sort of, and Elon Musk is in it playing himself.
Well, let's
Elon
let's
Musk,
never forget Elon Musk was in Iron Man 2 playing himself.
Was he? I don't recall
when
that.
they go to Monaco, he's like, "Hey, Tony." I don't know how he sounds like, but he's
Not like that.
And then
That's for sure.
Not like that. No.
and he's like, "Hey, Tony." And then Tony Stark is like, "Hey, let's build those electric cars." And he's like, "Oh, and if you do it first." And then he walks off. And I didn't
Oh,
realise
God, I
that
don't
until I
remember that
rewatched
at
it.
all.
But it's like it's legit Elon Musk talking about working with Tony Stark to build electric.
That's brilliant.
stuff.
Yeah, so Elon Musk plays himself as the bad guy, as a parody of himself, doing some sort of thing that he's trying to do.
He's stealing the solar energy.
Yes. Yeah. What's he going to
That's
do
what
with the
he's doing
solar
to
energy?
power his cars or something. I don't know. Power his spaceship. That is Mission Impossible 8. We don't need to come up with another tagline, do
No,
we? We've done
That's
it.
perfect.
So I've got 3, as the episode has preluded before me. The first one that I'm going to go for, quite an interesting film, No Way Home. And that is the title of the Spider-Man sequel, which, if you remember a few months ago, there was a lot of joke titles that got pushed around by the producers, by the actors themselves. And it was all like, I'm going to tell you what the real title is. And it was like, sticky web syndrome or something like that.
Yeah.
Like it was, whatever it was. And it was like a real big joke. And I think it sort of played into and off the back of sort of Tom Holland's character as a person.
Yeah,
but
like
obviously
he
we're
loves
not
to
going
You
leak
to
can't
things,
tell him
doesn't he?
anything.
Yeah, he
you
loves to
can't tell him
leak
anything,
things.
don't
Can't
you?
tell him
And
anything.
they love
So-
that in the franchise. That's part of his
Yeah.
appeal, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, and also because it was Homecoming, which obviously was a play on the idea that that it was coming back to Marvel after Sony, Columbia Pictures, whatever, had the Spider-Man franchise. Then it was Far From Home, which was because he was going on a cool European road trip, and now it's No Way Home. But we're not doing that, are we? We're not doing the third.
No, we're not
Spider-Man
doing
film,
that.
Tom Holland's series. Maybe it'll be. By the way, it might be the first franchise to get a fourth one because he's still going strong, and that's not happened yet. It's only got up to 3, right, and 2 at the last one, Garfield. But anyway, something to look forward to.
So my idea for No Way Home, I think it would be too obvious to go for a sort of someone's crashed a plane, and they have to find their way back. So I'm going to play on Sean's favourite thing. It's a space adventure
But we just
where
had
the
one
nav
of those.
where the nav system goes out and they jump to unknown coordinates.
And they have to get home using
Hey,
charts and maps and
I know what you're
stars
thinking. I know what you're thinking. It's exactly what like Star Trek did, didn't it? Where they're like
Star Trek Voyager.
Voyager, right? But the kids
But
these
this
days
isn't
don't even know what that is, right? They go,
That's true.
Star
true.
Trek, isn't that the thing with lightsabers? And
Oh,
right,
kids.
and so
Kids.
this is so
Oh.
you just rip that story straight out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
I
it's
think you could
definitely
do
like
it better. Controversially, I do think you could do that idea of being stranded so far from home, knowing that this generation won't actually get there. It's only the next generation or maybe the one below that. Like working for a goal higher than yourself is not something I really felt when I watched half of the series of Voyager that I watched. So I didn't feel like that was the point, working towards something you'll never see, which is quite powerful, I think. It's like climate change almost. You know, you've got to work towards something that might not affect you, but will definitely affect another generation. So
I think that was the difficulty with some of the Star Trek stuff was because you saw the same crew all the time. You never really got a sense of the fact that they were living ships, that like they would have had people that were families on there. 'Cause you never really saw a family on there. Whereas like with Battlestar Galactica, you literally had people like
you
making
see the
had
machinations of how they could. Like I've just finished. By the way, I didn't think I'd be able to bring this up today, but I just finished series 1 of Snowpiercer, and although there was like a whole load of shit that went down about the creative, that always happens. The showrunner and the pilot writer and director and everyone all left the pilot because they wanted to reshoot it to make it more approachable. So I was really dead against it, and I liked the film, obviously by Bong Joon-ho. So
oh, was it?
yeah,
Oh, I never knew that.
Parasite. So which is
Oh,
why
wow.
it's so sort of creative and unusual. So I was dead against it really, and then it had a shaky start, but then it sort of evolved to be something actually quite powerful about truth, lies, revolution, different structures of power. So I hesitate to label it, but like different political structures like capitalism and Marxism and democratic socialism and what, you know, and then even playing with what happens after revolution. So it actually turned out to be really fantastic, and I think it almost does what something like Voyager could have done, but better. So that's me just shilling for a series 1 of Snowpiercer on Netflix. But yeah, I like that as an idea, right? That's kind of cool. I don't know why
I'm gonna.
Yeah, go on.
So no, you go. No, because I'm going to change subject.
Oh, okay. Well, so am I. I think, but I don't have an actual idea. I just thought for some reason it should be some sort of British Mad Max, and the no way sign. Is that a sign on the road?
Oh,
That's. If I made that up, I don't
it's
drive.
no entry, isn't it? I think. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we'll make it work. That's just.
We'll make it work. You would make. It'd be a new sign.
Yes,
it'd
it'll be a
that was
new
created.
sign, and you have just some sort of British Mad Max is what I would like.
Mine is going to be because we're moving on. Mine is going to
I don't
be a
drive.
live
Doesn't
action
matter.
animal film. Yeah, live action animal film about a meerkat who's trying to find its way back after being abandoned. Maybe it gets misplaced on the way to a zoo or something. Has to go find its mum.
It gets
But it's
kidnapped
like
because
in the
people
vein of-
love comparethemeerkat.com
Yeah, something
in
like- there
the
we
UK.
are.
Not a sponsor, but
Yeah.
Yeah,
you know,
there's a ring.
Yeah,
an
meerkat's being
underground meerkat
abducted.
ring.
Yeah, love
And they're
it.
dressing him up,
but in the vein of like the Lion
character
King.
and everything, aren't they? And like, yeah,
And there's no way home for this little meerkat,
Oh.
but he does make it home.
yeah,
in the
that's
end.
good. Yeah, of course he does.
Dump.
Next,
double feature. Tom Holland double feature. Uncharted. That's what I'm going to go for
yeah.
next. Beloved video game franchise. One of the first PlayStation 3 games I ever played when I got it. Uncharted. The jock in me who was sick of seeing the boobies and the butt of Lara Croft and wanted a man to take her place, you know, and got Uncharted. But you know, was also my love with Naughty Dog Studios and Druckmann and sort of the directing and writing and lots of Sony product placement as well, just like the Budweiser
Vio.
product placement for.
remember Sony
the-
Vio? Yeah, no,
So-
it carried on the tradition of video games and films, really, where no, not necessarily, because usually the first entry is the best, but with video games, it's the second entry that's usually the best. So it's like the first entry lays the groundwork, Uncharted, Assassin's Creed, Mass Effect. The second one comes in and completely blows it out of the water. And then the third one is usually a disappointment in most ways. So it's like it sort of started that tradition, the Uncharted.
So the Uncharted, so they're turning the Uncharted into a film series starring Tom Holland and Mark Wahlberg as Sully. And actually, there was a photo that I gushed all over on the internet of seeing Tom Holland with Nolan North actually on set to voices Nathan Drake. So, you know, it was like one of those moments where like the film and video game stars collided, and also it brings favours. We talked about Resident Evil earlier, which was a pile of dog shit. You know, this seems like they're actually getting the voice actors and the directors from the games to come in and see it and, you know, help create it. But that's not what we're going to be talking about today, though, is it?
No, we're not. But before we move on swiftly to something questionable as whether it's better or worse than what the Uncharted movie will be like, I'm interested in how... Remember when Mark Wahlberg was going to be Nathan Drake? That's a terrible choice. He already did Max Payne. He wasn't good at that. But now they've made him Sully. So it's quite an interesting sort of decision to make, to take a cast member and move him, make a younger cast member,
a lateral move,
and move him up to the mentor, which kind of makes sense age-wise.
I was just like you once, kid.
And they showed a fantastic picture of Tom Holland as well as Nathan Drake. So it's very exciting to see where they might lift from in the franchise. But yes, you're right, Ryan. We are not doing that. Instead, we have
a story in space where someone is going where they haven't been before. Uncharted. No, I don't know. I think
Dan's got something. I think.
No, well, I was thinking that maybe it's an exploration into the brain. Like someone's like discovered a part of the brain that has been uncharted, and as they discover this new thing about the brain, they can unlock things in people's minds. So maybe it's like a superhero origins thing. It doesn't have to be superheroes; it could be something else. But like they find out they literally have to put a nanobot or a mini person into the brain to go and map out the brain. As they do that, they find more and more. Maybe it's a doctor that's dying, a brain surgeon is dying, and as a last ditch attempt, they get their daughter and they shrink her and put her into his brain, and she has to go and map out his brain so that because he's in a coma, to map out his brain to find the solution to cure him of the disease that he's suffering from already.
Yeah, love it. I like it. It's very interesting.
I think I just thought of one. I think it would be a horror movie about you know how in the Amazon there are still indigenous groups of people. So it would be like a sort of a group of like plucky teens go backpacking, and they want to let's go off trail in the Amazon and like, you know, let's just walk until we like, you know, find out where we're going, like no maps or whatever. And they come across this like tribe that hunts them in this area because they know it so well because they're the indigenous tribe, and probably cannibals. And then, so, you know, it's like they're going.
But it's a movie that came out in like the late 90s, early 2000s, where it's okay to sort of other tribes, and see them as as. Well, I mean,
like Midsummer sort of did that, but they made it European, so everyone was like, "Oh, it's fine."
I guess so, but I think there's a difference between sort of folkloric sort of approaches to. Although I haven't seen Midsummer.
Yeah, and actual people that might eat people.
Yeah, yeah. So, that's good. That's good. I don't have anything to add to Uncharted because I like both those ideas so much.
All right, the last one. Now, you know, I'm a purveyor of a wacky title, wacky things, eat weird things as well. Just in
it's unrelated.
Apples from the bottom.
Eat apples from the butt up. Yeah, and completely. You know, don't throw away any of it. You know, 0% wastage.
I've done that recently, and I have to say, no. I've started doing it recently, and I have to agree that it's the correct way to do it. It is.
So,
no question.
Purveyor of weird things. Shower oranging, which is a whole other thing we'll talk about at some other point.
Yeah, that is ridiculous.
But I found a ridiculous title. Well, a long title. It's probably a translation from a Japanese title, which is probably much shorter. But the English translation is The Cornered Mouse Dreams of Cheese.
And what's the story
And what
behind
this
this
is-
one? Did you say this film it was delayed, but had it come out already?
It was delayed. It was delayed, but then got released in Japan later on. It was delayed because of COVID, but then it got released later on. So this one has already been released. But I thought the title was amazing, and it does fall under the yaoi genre in Japanese art forms, and it's about a man who breaks up with his wife, moves in with the guy, ends up falling in love with the guy, and then has to make the choice of whether he continues his life as a sort of Japanese man finding a woman, or whether he takes a chance with falling in love with the man. But that's obviously not what we're going to do today.
No.
So The Cornered Mouse Dreams of Cheese.
Well, to me, that sounds like a spy code phrase that you say to let another spy know that you're in on the game, right? So The Cornered Mouse Dreams of Cheese sounds to me like the latest adaptation of a John le Carré spy novel.
Interesting.
And who knows what it's about? I have no ideas, but it's just a classic. It's the sequel to Tinker Tailor. And it picks up from those previous characters. There's just something about that sort of classic British spy vibe I get from The Cornered Mouse Dreams of Cheese. There is like the original title might have had the connotation of. There is a sadness to it, which is both the code phrase and also sort of what might happen if of a sort of double agent or a triple agent or a quadruple agent. No, wait, that wouldn't make sense. There'd be no point in being a quadruple agent, would there?
Yeah, because you wouldn't be crossing anybody. You'd cancel each other out.
But triple agent, maybe. But that would be interesting because actually dealing with the psychological ramifications of having to be either a double or a triple agent, that would be interesting. So like where the allegiances lie and...
Well, the Americans does it really well, don't they? About the sort of the sleeper agents in... a couple of my friends are telling me to watch this, but they're the Russian sleeper agents in America, and sort of having to live that completely innocuous life and waiting to be activated.
Yes. Yeah, I did watch some of the Americans. I enjoyed it. I haven't got into it the same way other people have. But I think it begins with them immediately wanting, or they've had a lead up to it, but it's the moment where they decide to sort of defect back to the American side because they have children. So it's about them trying to sort of maybe almost undo that sort of stuff that they've been doing all their lives. That's quite interesting. But yeah, so I just feel the spy vibes on it. I don't know what other vibes you guys are getting.
I'm going for this being, it's the English retranslation of the Spanish translation of a film. The film deals with like looking back at Afghanistan, prisoners of war and torture, and sort of the deprivation, sleep deprivation, sensory overload stuff, and it's like a film dealing with that. I think Matt Damon's probably going to be the prisoner of war, and it's really hardcore, it's really hard, gritty. But the Spanish do what they do, and retranslated it into Spain. Like Some Like It Hot is like Two Men in a Dress, right? Which blows the whole thing. So this is the English translation of the Spanish title of this film, which is probably something hardcore, like 700 Days in Baghdad or whatever it's called, like something like that. But the Spanish version is The Cornered Mouse Dreams of Cheese.
Which somewhat undermines it, but maybe it takes on a whole new meaning
in Spanish.
So to just to add maybe one bonus one in there, because it also has a great title. It was because it was a manga originally, and this was followed up by another manga that hasn't been turned into a film yet, and that is The Carp on the Chopping Block Jumps Twice.
Well, that's the sequel, isn't it? Do you know what I mean?
It's the sequel to this. It's the sequel to the Spanish.
It's the sequel to
Spanish translation.
Any pitch that has come out of this. It could be the sequel to it. It sounds equally sort of either mistranslated as per Dan's idea, or some sort of follow-up code phrase for a double agent. Why have you got? Is there something glaring jump out at you for the
I don't know. I just
trout
think
on the chopping block or whatever it is?
The carp on the chopping block jumps twice. I don't know. It's one of those quite poetic titles that just sort of, I don't know. It just is one of those things I think we quite rarely see. Like Doctor Strangelove, like the title for that is one of those ones that I can't remember what it is. Is it like How I Stopped Worrying and Learned to Love the Bomb or something like that? Isn't that what it? The title, and that's not even a subtitle; it's an or title. And I think we don't get a particular lot of these because people want a snappy title. F9, MI8. We even talked about these. But that's what
I'm a big fan of The Assassination of Jesse James by the Coward Robert Ford. That's a great title, which obviously, as we might have already discussed, mirrors the pulp sort of novella titles and newspaper titles of the time. So that sort of it's a fitting title that throws you into the genre and time period, right? So I do like a title that throws you into the genre and time period. And I'm a massive fan of a long title. I like them. The longer, the better for me. And no colons or subtitles. I would like a full on. None of this Resident Evil : Welcome to Raccoon City. I like a full title. So maybe we'll do a Slash Dupe episode on extraordinarily long titles. Maybe the longest titles in the world. And by that time, we probably would have come up with a decent pitch for the flounder, whatever it's called, jumps onto the chopping block or whatever.
The carp on the chopping block jumps twice.
Ryan's having an existential crisis at the moment.
Because I've only had one cup of coffee, as I said earlier, and now all that caffeine's run out. And normally by this point I'd be on cup 2 and just like tap myself up to enough to when the sun comes out and I can like sort of absorb it like Superman. But like being, so
people at home will have got one episode extremely late. Do you remember was it our Christmas one we did, or we did one with Joffrey?
Joffrey.
So we had one that was extremely late, and the quality for that is questionable. And then they've had this, which is extremely early for some of us.
Definitely questionable.
So, so let us know what you thought of our titles today. Give us some of your own. Let us know if you like this new format that we're trying. In between, we love the guests coming on. They're our bread and butter. They're the most exciting part of Slash Dupe for us. But we like to throw in these episodes every now and again where we just sort of go off on a specific subject or title or something, and it's currently going on. So let us know if you like those. Ryan, where can people find us if they want to give us some feedback or share us to other people?
Yeah, you can find us at Slash Dupe on all socials. If you just Google Slash Dupe, we've beaten Google. We've beaten Google's SEO because we're the only ones out there. So if you just Google us, you'll find us on everywhere. Please get on to our iTunes and leave us a review if you've listened to this. It's really, really nice to see some of those come in from people. And you can find us wherever you listen to good podcasts, as well as find our Patreon. And I think we have a Reddit, but we don't really use it.
And Dan, what's next for Slash Dupe?
Well, we're hoping to have our adjudicator episode up and running for you, but who knows? And then we'll be into the final stretch of this season, which is getting closer and closer to us actually having to do that trailer. So we'll have 6 more guests, 6 more ideas that come out of that, and then one final adjudicator
and that will
episode, and then all of our finalists.
That will draw the current season to a close. And then it's very exciting. And we're looking forward to sort of throwing in some new surprises for the second season as well. So we're open to feedback, and we'd love to hear what you guys love about it when you're listening to Slash Dupe. What do you connect with? What do you want to hear more of? And we will do our best to try and fit that in. So just give us a shout, DM us, or find us on our socials. So it's been a really fun episode today. We've made the most of it. Our producer has given us a lot of demands, and we have managed to acquiesce to some of them. And I feel very confident we have a lot of strong ideas going forward out of these delays. So it leads me to have a very special thank you to Dan and Ryan.
Hold on a minute, Sean. I just wanted to delay your outro, that's all.
Thank you.
Thank
you. Good work. Thanks everyone. It's been a really fun episode, and I hope everyone at home will keep in touch and join us next time. Bye. Bye.
recorded in the Capo Studios 2021. What's up, danger?